Hey folks, it's Sam, sorry. And I'm talking today about this this new moon in Cancer. This Cancer new moon is um, going to happen tomorrow on the 28th, early in the morning on the 28th. And it's going to be happening in the Nakshatra of Pushya. Pushya is related to the udders of a cow. So it's that section of Cancer that's very much about, um, you know, um, about nurturing and a mother's love and things like that. One second, let me just look at something here. Make sure I have this going. Okay, yeah. And so this is going to be a very important new moon because again, it's a start of a new cycle, and it's a cycle related to again this like nurturing, this feminine connection to the heart comes after the Gemini cycle. So I'm going to be talking about that today, both the sign of Cancer, the nakshatra of Pushya, and you can see the chart here where Venus is in Gemini, Mars, Rahu, and Aries, still getting closer. Jupiter is up here in Pisces still, and Saturn in Capricorn. So please like, share, and subscribe this as I am intentional now in reminding people. If you're new to this channel and you want to get updates when I go live, again, ring the bell on YouTube to get notified, or wherever else you're watching it. Please share it with others and whatnot. I also am happy to announce that I've started back up again my Astrology Training Lab. And this is where you can get this forecast for Cancer, not just a general forecast for Cancer, but for each of the 12 signs, because wherever the sign of Cancer falls is going to be different depending on your ascendant. So if you're a Libra, for example, it's in your 10th house, right? If you're a Scorpio, it's your 9th house. If you're Gemini, like me, it's your 2nd house. So that's unique for each person. And one of the things I do in this Astrology Training Lab, I'm going to show you the great teachers that I have now doing daily forecasts and also monthly calendar from a couple of my students who are now doing great work themselves, but they're graduates from my school. But also you get the full new moon forecast for me, which I'm going to be doing probably later today, where I'm going to be talking about how this how this new moon in Cancer will affect each of the 12 signs, including yours. So whatever your rising sign is, this moon in Cancer will affect you. So I do that twice a month on the new moons and the full moons. Plus you get all of these bonuses as well, 10 hours of bonus classes. It's only 50 cents to log in, but you get these daily forecasts from Sebastian Uria. He's a level 2 graduate from my school. After watching me write these forecasts for several years, he started doing them, and they're fantastic. He's doing a great job with them. So these are daily forecasts that you get. And then the monthly calendar by Melissa Flores Davis, as you see, she maps out the entire month, all the important astrological transits, and also has a downloadable journal. So it's a monthly calendar and journal that you also get to download. Plus, as I say, a bunch of bonuses. I put the link here in the comments. So really check that out. It's only 50 cents to join. And then it's 2 weeks of forecast. And then if you want to continue, it's about $1 a day, $39.95. And so that's been in the works, where I've been putting it back together again. Because I did have it on Facebook groups and all, but I took it off of that because I don't really like that platform. So anyway, check that out. It'll be definitely worth your 50 cents, and you get 2 weeks of forecast and see what it's like to be watching the forecast every day, to be staying up with the daily astrology, because daily astrology is really the best place to start with understanding who you are, how the cosmic energy works. People ask me all the time, where should I start? How can I learn more? Well, I recommend they get my book, especially this book, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, and I recommend they watch the astrology every day. That's why I put this together. And I started writing these forecasts 15 years ago. That's the best way that I started really understanding what the energy feels like inside. Until you understand what the energy feels like, and it's something that's living, and it's a living, breathing force inside of you, then you're not going to understand it. It's just going to be something up there that's doing something to you in here, and you're not really sure what. And then when you do try to learn it, it's going to be a lot of information and a lot of, well, I know this thing, and you don't really know it because it's not alive in you, just like anything else. It's like if you believe something about a certain type of food, but you've never tasted it, right? Like, well, I've heard, chilies are hot, so I know they're hot, but you've never really tasted it. You don't really know what it feels like. Then you don't really know what the experience of it is. So the best way to really learn and understand and experience it is to watch it every day. So I'm glad to say that that's back. So those of you who have been waiting for it as well, which there are actually a lot of people, it's back. So go ahead and register. So this new moon in Cancer, again, this is a great time to also be, doing this relaunch, you would say, of that member site, because that's kind of like a home base for people with their astrology. And that's really what the sign of Cancer is about. It's really that nurturing part. Again, this is why even in the graphics for this class, I use this cow's udder. You can just imagine a calf just kind of suckling and nurturing and literally sucking the life force out of the body of the mother, right? And that life force nurturing us is really the way to look at the sign of Cancer, because again, we say things like the mother and this and that, but what that really is, like, you can really see it more than anything as like her body, like, giving you life. And that suckling and nurturing that comes right out of her body. Now we have things like formula and whatnot, but there was a long time when the thing the baby ate came right out of the mother's teat, right? Just like a cow. And so that's the symbol of Cancer, of this Rashi, of this section of space. Now, this is one of those very important sections of the sky that really shows you, by the way, I'm just going to say, the Sidereal Zodiac. So again, most people by now really understand, if you went through some kind of wondering and sort of momentary confusion because you heard things about, Vedic astrology also being tropical, or maybe there's that. Most people who were introduced to that sort of confusion have sort of come out of it a little bit, especially if they're watching anything that I do, because I, sort of debunk that all the time. And this is one of the great opportunities to do it. And again, here's why. It's not just a belief, but when you start the zodiac, when Aries and Ashwini are here, when Aries and Ashwini begin here, then by the time you get to here, you have Pushya, which is that section of Cancer. Okay? It's literally the part of Cancer that is the mother's teat. Like, that is totally the Cancer energy. Cancer is ruled by the moon. It's related to mothering, nurturing, suckling, the vulnerability, the selfless love. Again, if you're using the tropical zodiac, this nakshatra of the teat is now in Leo, which, again, Leo is not about suckling, nurturing from the teat, okay? It's not the breasts. So again, this is one of those aspects, or one of those moments where it's so obvious. There's a lot of them when the nakshatras, just, you can tell that's not the same section of sky. And all it means is that the Indians knew that you measure objects in the sky with the sky, not with the vernal equinox and with the calendar type events here on Earth. So, for example, where the planet is in the sky has nothing to do with the fact that it's the middle of the summer here. Again, tropical zodiac bases the zodiac on what season it is on Earth, but that has nothing to do with where the planet is in the sky. this is a perfect opportunity to notice this alignment between the sidereal sky and the sidereal, nakshatras and rashis, the sections of sky where they were looking up in the sky and locating the object in the sky, many times using reference stars, not always, but reference stars as well. But there were sections that don't have big stars in them. They were still using the sidereal sky. And this section of the sky has this type of energy. It's that simple. It's this field of energy. And by the way, they even use that word for field to describe the sky. It's the kshetra, and even the word nakshatra comes from the aspect of a kshetra, which is like a field, like Kurukshetra, which is the battlefield. Kurukshetra was a battlefield. Nakshatra is a section of the sky, but they also call the sky a kshetra, which is a field. The sky is, right? And they even use the word for rashis, which are signs, and houses to mean like the same thing. They're both that field of energy. It just depends on where you're measuring that field from. If the sign of Cancer is the 5th house or the 12th house or whatever, based on the ascendant, which is what I talked about at the beginning. But this section of sky was the thing that was important. And this section of sky is the sign of Cancer, where it's imbued with this energy of nurturing, motherhood, connection, sustenance, vulnerability. It's a sattvic sign. It has a sattvic motivation, and sattva is the motivation of purity. Like a mother's love for a child is a pure love, not the transactional love, for example, of Libra or Venus. Venus is the transactional love. It's the agreement that we make with adults, right? You give me this money, I give you this thing. That's a transaction. That's Venus-y. That's a Venus thing. The mother's love for the child isn't a transaction. She's not like, well, I'll let you suck on my teat if you give me a certain amount of money, or I'll let you do this if you do that. Again, notice the difference. And it's a big distinction to make now. And it's a time to really connect with that purity and that devotional aspect of love, not the transactional aspect of love. And this is one of the most confusing parts of Cancer. And in fact, even people who have a lot of Cancer energy, Cancer ascendant, Cancer moon, people that have a lot of Cancer energy, they can get very tripped up in their adult transactional relationships because their nature is to give that selfless love, right? But we can't selflessly love and nurture our partners like that. If we do, it starts to feel abusive. We start to feel abused, or they start to feel smothered and mommied and also abused. It's also abusive from the other side, because the emotional abuse of always guilt tripping other people because of how they make you feel or whatever, which is kind of the negative Cancer energy that can come out when they're always getting their feelings hurt because it never feels equal. This is one of the things that Cancer in general, one of the difficult things they can have in their transactional romantic interactions or agreements is they feel like they always want the connection. And this is a sign where that vulnerability and that devotional love overruns our boundaries, just like the mother's love overruns the boundaries of the child. Literally, she's like feeding them, right? So there's no boundaries. They become like one entity. Again, that's fine when you're giving selfless love, but that's really the only appropriate time. And I don't just mean for a mother's love to a young child, but I also mean, like, for example, the way we selflessly love our pets. That's one of the best examples for adults, is our pets that we just love selflessly, and they'll take it up. They'll lap it up, right? Sure, love me to death. The pets will love it. And we don't feel cheated. Notice the difference. We don't feel cheated when we just give our selfless love to the dog or the cat or whatever. And they don't have to do anything to earn it. They can poop on the floor or do whatever they want, and we still love them and still nurture them, just like we do with young children that need the selfless love. But then as a child grows up, our relationship with the child has to change, or else all of that, quote, selfless love isn't going to be appreciated anymore. You notice once a child starts to become independent, they start going, come on, mom, come on, stop all that, right? And then the parent has to adjust. Sometimes parents can't adjust very well, and they want to keep smothering the child, and they get resentful and they get their feelings hurt because the child doesn't need them as much anymore. And then they start becoming domineering parents. And the thing that gets messed up is that transactional relationship now, which is the Venus one. So the Cancer love, that Cancer nurturing, is a very primal, instinctive love. It's our instinctive nature to want to give love and not really ask anything in return, not really need to receive in order to feel replenished. And it's akin to devotion. Those who have spiritual teachers in their life and gurus, and of course children, or something that they're devoted to, even their pets. And by the way, people become devoted to their pets. Think of the difference, people. Again, think of the difference you have between your boyfriend or girlfriend and your dog or your cat. Which one, if you had to choose, which one would you choose? Most likely the dog. What's that say about you? No, I mean, if someone made you choose, maybe not. Maybe if you really, really, actually really were devoted and really loved that boyfriend or whatever. And again, if you're married and there's real love there, then there's a devotional level. But think about that, because it's a very primal love that you give, and the thing that you get from giving the love. Because always remember that you're getting something. Even when you're giving selfless love, you're giving that because of what you get, because of how good it feels to give and how replenished you are by being devoted to something. And that's really the thing to remember, especially about the water signs, Cancer, and I mean Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, all three are that way. But it's very easy to think that, oh yes, I'm so devoted, I'm such a martyr, so selfless, so holy, so amazing. It's devotional, but you're getting something. You're getting the feeling, and it's very close to that pure feeling that's not transactional. Because the thing that we get in the transactional relationship isn't actually that beauty and that love directly. It's something else. It's like a joy and a happiness and a elevation of our individuality towards something more, more transcendent and all. And that leads to a kind of blissful emotion. It's more emotional, but the water elements are more devotional. It's more of a devotional quality. And so, hang on a second. I'm getting a weird thing with my Wi-Fi signal here. I'm going to quit all this. I have a couple other windows open over here. And I might have some. Okay. So anyway, this is a big time now for the next 30 days. And like I said before, that 30 days, that time is really, it's really a time to see how this Cancer cycle is going to affect you. And as I said in my in my message here, I'm going to put this in the link again, that if you wanted to see how this will affect you, I have put together the Astrology Training Lab, which is where you can get the upcoming new moon forecast for your sign as well. Because again, it's going to affect you. If you're a Virgo, for example, it's your 11th house. It's going to be an 11th house cycle, and your relationship to the Cancer energy is very 11th house. It's very much like in a sort of public way. You want to, have this love of public activity and higher causes, and that's where you can see your sort of nurturing. If you're Libra, it's 10th house, which is your duties and responsibilities, for example. If you're Scorpio, it's 9th house, which is very devotional. So this is really setting off an entire 30-day cycle of this whole life lesson. This is not trivial. In fact, it's one of the most important cycles to be aware of all the time. This is regardless of your chart. You're like, oh, I have this here, I'm that. We focus so much on that. When people are trying to actually feel astrology as being a living presence in your life. People, they think, I'm going to learn astrology, and they obsess over their chart, which they can't really read very well. And they focus and they pull out little aspects of their own chart that, again, they can't even really interpret very well. It takes a long time to be able to interpret your chart really very well. It doesn't take very long at all to understand, oh, I'm an Aquarius, and this cycle that just started is related to my 6th house. This is the lesson I'm working on now. It's very simple, actually. Understand the qualities of Aquarius in general, or even not. Just understand the qualities of the 6th house and how that's about being of service and being willing to do the hard work, because it just came from a cycle of the 5th house, and these things build on each other. So like if you're the Aquarius, last month it was a 5th house cycle, which was about your creative heart's desire and expressing yourself and finding the things that bring you joy. That's the 5th house. Then the next month, which is this month, is the 6th house, which is being willing to work hard to bring those things about, being willing to sacrifice in order to make the things you love grow and work and be nurtured. Then the next month will be 7th house, which is about connecting those with other people. Then the next month will be 8th house, which is about letting go of the attachments, blah, blah, blah. And so your life, whether you know it or not, and whether your chart, regardless of the planets in your chart, just based on your ascendant and these monthly cycles, you should be staying in alignment. It's actually very simple, but very profound. So again, if you want to stay up with that, that's what this member site really is in essence. And again, it's only 50 cents for 2-week trial. You would get daily forecasts by Sebastian that look like this. This is what the member area looks like. And you'd also get a monthly calendar by Melissa Flores Davies, and you would get this new moon forecast that I'm going to be doing based on your ascendant and all these bonus classes. So again, this is why the training lab has been so popular. And I've been spending several months getting it back together again and really improving it and bringing in some new talent as well. So they're doing a fantastic job, and you'll really benefit. 50 cents, give it a shot for a couple weeks. But these cycles that I'm talking about, again, whether you know it or not, it's really about a 2-week period. It's from the new moon begins and a new cycle starts, then the moon moves, and then 2 weeks later, there's a full moon, and now you're working on that halfway point, and then the moon starts to starts to wane again, and then the next cycle starts. So again, whether you know it or not, in many ways, one of them, or if not like the main focus and thrust of your life all the time, regardless of your chart, is revolving around these 2-week cycles, new moons to full moons, new moons to full moons, within the context of your chart, of course, because again, people will have planets here, but you're also in a certain dasha. All of that stuff is also there, but it's unmistakable that once you start following these cycles, your connection to what's happening changes. You have insights that you would not have had before. So definitely realize that. And this is why I talk about these new moon and full moon cycles. In general, it's this Cancer energy, like I'm talking about, and this Pushya nurturing, nourishing energy. That's a general for all of us. But again, if you're Taurus, this is 3rd house energy. It's about needing to find a new way to do things and questioning your teachings as well. Within that, feeling into your heart about whether you really believe or whether you really understand what you believe. And it's a whole different thing because it's 3rd house. Gemini, for me, it's 2nd house. Pisces, it's 5th house. So again, it's always different based on your ascendant. And this is literally how the year evolves for each person. Again, whether you know it or not, based on where that ascendant is, that's really kind of like the reset of your year. It's like, for me, every year to some extent, the new moon in Gemini kind of resets for me because that's my ascendant. That's when sun and moon come together. And it's like, okay, now it's Gemini time. Now it's kind of Sam time. This is kind of where it comes back to my identity. And then the next month, which is this month, is my values. Next month, it's going to be 3rd house, my interests. The following month, 4th house, my heart, blah, blah, blah. So this is why you tend to experience certain things at certain times of the year, whether you know it or not. This has been happening your whole life. So I'm saying this in general so that you understand why these lunations are so important and why astrologers should be talking about these things or understanding them. It's why in 2 weeks we're going to have the full moon, and I'll be talking about that one. And then wherever your ascendant is, again, like if you were the Aquarius, which is the one I use, it's about that hard work and effort and you know making sure to work hard for the things that you love. 2 weeks from now, it's going to be harmonizing that with trusting in the universal wisdom and learning how to let go and not just be so attached, because it's a 12th house full moon. And the 12th house is to harmonize the energy of the 6th house. So we're always doing this. And that's what I do with my contribution here in the member site mainly, is I do these full and new moon lunations. So again, really check that out. 50 cents, you really can't go wrong. So, but this nakshatra of Pushya is really very important now, and it's ruled by the god Brihaspati. And again, this is this aspect of Cancer. We use Sidereal Zodiac. It's one sky. It's the Nakshatra, or the field of energy. If you're measuring it from an ascendant, that sign also becomes a house. That's why in many of the old classic books, including the books of Rahamihira and Garga and others, they say Rashi, Bhava, Kshetra, it's all the same. They literally say it's all basically the same. Rashi, which means sign, Bhava, which means house, Kshetra, which means field. It's all the same thing. It's all coming from the same thing. And it's the sky. It's all coming from the sky. Whether you're measuring it as a Rashi, which is a sign, or as a Bhava, which is as a house, or a Nakshatra, it's all a Kshetra, or a field of energy, right? And so this field of energy has 3 Nakshatras in it. One is Purnavasu, which is the beginning. And again, even that one, the deity is Aditi, who is the divine mother, like the Adityas, the mother of the Zodiac, is literally the first Nakshatra of Cancer, is a mother Nakshatra. And then the second one is Pushya, which is related to the breasts, which we're talking about. Again, this is a sign of Cancer, right? And then the final one is Aslesha, which is where we have Mercury right now, which is more about the transcendent quality of the emotions, to take us to, the sort of cosmic ocean and the devotional, transformational potential in Cancer, rather than just the worldly nurturing of the mother attached to the child and whatnot. It's that next level where that love takes us to the source of existence itself, but it's also quite volatile if we don't get our emotions out of control, our emotions in control, right? If we don't channel that emotion into devotion, then those qualities of Aslesha can be very, diabolical or pathological or whatnot. It can be quite dangerous. But these are the aspects of the sign of Cancer, that Kshetra, or the field of Cancer. And Pushya is the one related to Brihaspati, who was the priest. And Brihaspati was the god who was also affiliated with Jupiter. And there's a great story where his wife ran off with the moon, as the moon goes through the nakshatras every day, goes into a new nakshatra. Chandra, the god of the moon, fell in love with the wife of Brihaspati named Tara and took her away, ran off with her. And she stayed with him. She didn't even want to come back. She was like, that's it, I'm done with Brihaspati, the old priest. He's old priest. I mean, he's lovely guy, but he's definitely not, so romantic, and he's a priest, he's not the, Mr. Excitement, Mr. Chandra, the moon, and so that was it. She was going to now be with the moon, and the gods wouldn't have it. But she didn't want to come back. So eventually they got Chandra, the moon, to bring Tara back to Brihaspati, the priest. But of course, she was pregnant. She was pregnant with Chandra's child. And the problem, of course, was that now Brihaspati has to raise the child of Chandra, right? And often these are the kinds of things where you see scandal. And for example, Saturn was the son of Surya and his shadow wife. So Saturn wasn't treated well by his illegitimate mother, for example, and things like that. So there was all kinds of weird stuff around, the relationship of parents not raising their children well in the Indian pantheon. But with the example of Brihaspati and Tara, Brihaspati raised Tara's child with Chandra as if it was his own. He didn't shame the child or mistreat the child or look down upon the child simply because he wasn't his own. So again, it's that lesson in Cancer about how once the child is there, you just have to love and nurture the child. I think I got this with Saturn wrong. Saturn was actually the child of the real wife, but then the shadow wife didn't treat him correctly. I think that's proper. When the shadow wife came in, Chaya came in, she mistreated him. I might have it backwards. I have this kind of weird dyslexic where if there's two binary choices, I often forget which one is true. As much as I'm able to manage a lot of data, sometimes if it's a choice between two things, I can never remember which one. That includes my right and left. I don't know why, but I can hardly ever remember that. I have to consciously remember this is my left hand because I throw with my right hand. So sometimes I mix things up and I can't remember. If it's two choices, I don't know why. So if I got that wrong, I'm pretty sure it's that Saturn was the legitimate son of the sun, but then when the shadow wife came in, she mistreated him. But I might have it backwards. See, I should know that. It might be that he was the son of the shadow, and then when the real wife came, she mistreated him. One or the other. I'm sorry. I'll learn it and make sure to remember. But in this case, that's not what happened. Brihaspati raised Buddha, who was the son of Chandra and Tara, which was Mercury. Buddha raised him as his own, even though it wasn't his legitimate son. I think he is the son of the shadow. Yeah. Saturn was the son of the shadow wife. Yeah, that's what I said the first time. I said he was the son of the shadow wife. Or maybe I didn't say it right the first time. See, I get it. Yeah. He was the son of the shadow wife. That's what I thought. And then when the real one came in, she mistreated him. Yeah, see, that's what I thought I said. Anyway, I don't want to bog this down in that, but it's a weird kind of thing that happens. It's always been like that. Two things, I'll often confuse them for some reason. It's a form, I guess I call it a binary dyslexia, a specific binary dyslexia or something, because other things I don't. I see things in the right order, but if it's a choice between two things, it's like I can never remember which one it is. I'll begin, no, it's that one. No, but wait a minute, I thought it was that one before. It's this one. And then I'll just go in a circle. I don't even remember what I said. Anyway, shadow, right? We'll talk about the shadow here. So thank God I don't have more disabilities with all that stuff. But anyway, so this wasn't what happened here. What happened in this case, because usually, again, any kind of thing like that, it's like, oh, you're the illegitimate son. I'm going to mistreat you. I'm going to abuse you. I'm going to do this. That wasn't the case here. This is probably the only example I know of in the Indian pantheon where the illegitimate son, and I told the story quick, it was a big scandal. I mean, it was a scandal beyond scandal. Brihaspati was the priest of the gods. I mean, he wasn't just, a priest over here. He was the priest of the gods. He's like the Pope or something, right? Like the most revered priest of the gods. His wife was the most beautiful, he had a hot babe. And then she runs off and it's like, bring him back. And she's like, no, I'm not coming back. And Chandra's like, no, I'm not bringing her back. We're having a ball. And finally, it's like they were ready to destroy all of creation. And finally they relented. And Brihaspati had every right to mistreat the babe, mistreat the child, send the child away, but he didn't. And part of the story is because it was Buddha or Mercury. Mercury was the progeny, was the result of Tara, which was Brihaspati's wife, and the moon, which is Chandra. and the child was funny and precocious and sweet and loving. It was Buddha. And so Brihaspati, loved him so much anyway. So, there's a lot of stories, or there's a lot of implications within this story about planetary friendship and whatnot. And I see people are contributing in the comments about those things too. So yeah, there's a lot of qualities of this story which show the friendship and enmity between Jupiter, because he's very much, Brihaspati is like the sort of presiding deity of Jupiter as well. If you were to connect him with a deity, Jupiter is like Brihaspati. And the Chandra is the moon, of course. By the way, they're all male in this pantheon, even the moon and Venus. Venus is Shukracharya, the moon is Chandra, and the Nakshatras are female. So, but this story shows that selfless love and nurturing and prevailing wisdom and guiding principles of the sign of Cancer as well. And again, just to reiterate, this is sidereal astrology, because again, all this would be in Leo if it was tropical. And then, 700 years from now, they'll be in Virgo or something. So it just keeps changing. And that's certainly not the way it's conceived and laid out. So this is a quality of Cancer that is in many ways the most pure, the most sattvic, the most aligned and oriented with pure teachings, pure wisdom. That's what sattva is. Again, it's the teats of a cow, which do nothing but nurture. And this nakshatra is ruled by Brihaspati, who is like the priest. And even though his wife runs off and has a baby with another man, comes back and raises the child, that sattvic intention, again, sattva meaning there's a higher purpose behind things. The higher purpose, children bring in sattvic energy, right? It's not this resentful kind of, again, transactional nature like I was talking about earlier. He might, again, they didn't talk about what Brihaspati and Tara's relationship was like after that. That's a different matter, right? The story really revolves around the child, but I'm sure that Brihaspati and Tara, their transactional relationship was probably a bit different after that. But Brihaspati toward the child, raised the child. Children are sattvic, and relationships are rajasic. They're related to kama, whereas children are related to dharma, 5th house, and relationships are related to 7th house and kama. And if you've ever been involved with a woman who has a child or a man who has a child, you'll realize that children come first, and they must. So don't get involved with someone who has a child unless you want to come second. Some people don't want that. Frankly, I happen to not mind it very much at all, because it's fine, because I have things that are important as well. So if their children want to come first, that's great, because I have things that probably come first as well. And rather than, just an aside, as far as children and relationships, the children come first. This is why relationships can break up, because of the way children are being raised. One of the quickest ways that people will break up. And they'll stay together for the children as well, because the children bring in dharma and the relationship is kama. We can suffer our own unhappiness if it's for the better of the children. As long as the children aren't being harmed by the unhappiness, then we'll leave because it's harming the children. And again, you might fall in love with a man or a woman and it'd be great, and your desires and kama and fun and enjoyment is great. But if it's taken away from the child, the mother or father will feel guilty if they're not taking care of their children, because they want to be with the lover and romance. And it's true, because the children are dharma and they evoke the dharma in the parent. So that's what sattva is as well in this context. Sattva and rajas run along the same lines, but there's a dharma approach to each of the gunas as well, which is a little more complicated. Dharma and gunas are and purusharthas are different, but but we'll just leave it at that. But this is an important energy to understand right now, is to align. As we become grown-ups and adults, it's less about children and it's more about being devoted to your gurus and your teachers, because it's the same energy when there's a powerful devotion, because that's the highest quality of Cancer. We can be devoted to our pets, devoted to our young children, but eventually these are just situational. The highest devotion is to the truth, to ourself as a divine being, and ultimately that often flows in through a guru of some sort. This is why the highest quality of emotions and water signs is devotion. They need to be devoted to something higher. All water signs. If you have a Pisces, Scorpio, or Cancer ascendant, you need to be devoted to something that's transcendent, not just transactional, not a partner, not a person. This is where you get stuck, because you're trying to be devoted to something which is transcendent. Again, you can pour your love into something of the world like a pet or a child for a while, but eventually you need to be devoted to God, to teachings, and have that elevate your emotions to something devotional. That's the biggest lesson for this next month, is to be devoted, devotional. If you don't have gurus in your life that you're devoted to and higher teachings, then you just need to be devoted to those practices and feel them in the heart. That's the great promise. I've been doing a lot of readings lately, and many people they understand about meditation, and again, but they wind up struggling with consistency and wind up struggling doing it because there's no devotion. And they're like, how do I get devotion? How do I really like this, but how do I become devotional? And again, it's the easiest thing. It's your nature is devotion. Your nature is pure love. That's all you're looking for, is something to be devoted to. So it's easy, like if they've had children or something like that, I find what they're actually devoted to, which is something that they love more than they love their desires and wanting to be happy. We're really going along two different tracks. What I really love, what's pure in my heart, and what I think is going to make me happy in the world. And again, this is the big confusion. We're chasing kama and pleasure and happiness, usually with other people, some version of it, and thinking that it's going to make us love and think it's going to connect us to the heart in a devotional way. And it's not. They're not the same thing. They're just not. One is bhakti or devotion, and another is kama or desire. They're just not the same thing. In fact, one is kind of anathema to the other. It's literally like thinking eating a pint of ice cream is going to give you love. It's not going to give you love. It's going to give you pleasure. It might give you a little bit of happiness, maybe, especially if you share it with someone else, but it's not going to give you the bliss of the soul. It just simply can't. Neither can another person or experience with them, because they're limited. They're limited by your body and mind and senses and perceptions. They're not transcendent. That's what bhakti is. That's what devotion is. So when I tell people how to meditate, and I ask them if they have a deity that resonates with them, and I'll tell them, just bring it into the heart, just feel it in the heart. And even if it means that you connect your children with that, like, again, our mind tends to make everything separate. Well, I really like Krishna, but again, it's kind of an idea that we have, and we kind of try to make it devotional. But you talk about their kids or their dog, they love their kids, there's love. And I'm saying, well, your child is Krishna. Your dog is Krishna. Your child is Shiva. This is why there's all those stories, by the way, because they try to, the ancient Indian scientists were mystics and sages, and they knew the way our mind worked, and they knew that our mind was like this. It hasn't changed. This is why they made all these stories, so that we'll captivate our heart and see that these deities and these transcendent energies are our energies. It's why you see Shiva and Parvati like arguing like a husband and wife, and doting over the kids, or Shiva accidentally cutting off the Ganesha's head, and Parvati's going to yell at him like a father, throwing the baby up in the air and dropping him or something. They knew they anthropomorphized or humanized these deities. Again, it's a lot to maybe read all of that, but this is why once you start to penetrate the joy of the literature of India and these stories, especially, it winds up making them human and humanizing them. But short of having to do all of that, you can see and find the love in your heart, the devotion in your heart, which is your nature, with any of the deities or energies that you resonate with. And you feel yourself as that thing. I was telling a client yesterday, when you do your meditation and you resonate with Shiva, you have these beautiful children that you love. Just bring that love and devotion that you have for your children into the space. Like how thankful you are, how grateful you are that you've been able to have this thing. When you sit down, you bring that love and gratitude and vulnerability and reverence into that. Then when you close your eyes and you do your breath, you're feeling that love in your heart. You're meditating for them, to them, as them. And you bring that form of Shiva that really resonates with you. You bring that love into it and you feel that is you. It's not some thing out there. It's your nature. That's how you look. You are Shiva. When you're doing your nostril breathing, it's Shiva doing the breathing. And it's Shiva who is, read about Shiva as the father and his love for his children, all of his children. That's you. It's not, and bring that love and joy into it. It's not something out there. This is what's lacking. And when that's your experience, then meditation isn't something that you're just trying to do to get what you want. Oh, I know I should meditate. I know. But what am I going to get? What am I going to get? What's it going to do for me? That's what we do. It's always what we're doing. It's called ego. And we're all ego. We're only doing things that we like because we're going to get something. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's our nature. But that's why these practices are that way. They're meant to align with your ego that way and bring your ego into a place that's transcendent. Ego is just the separate nature that has all these desires, that sits down to try to meditate and then is thinking, oh, this is boring. Why aren't I devoted? Oh, God, when am I going to meet a guru? And like make a problem out of it. People make a problem out of everything. It's not hard. You bring that love and devotion into everything, really. So again, this is just a way to go deeper into your own nature and consciousness. And this Cancer time is a time when that is really powerful and ripe and resonant, and also the point, because however disconnected from the heart you are, you're going to feel the suffering of that. It's not just that, oh, this will be great. It won't be great if you're not doing that. It could be horrible. I'll give it to you straight. It doesn't mean you're going to suddenly do this. It means this is the potential. And if it's not that, you're going to be longing for it. Why don't I feel devotional? Why am I so emotional? And what also happens, this is why Cancer, stuff I talked about at the beginning. Why am I always the victim? Why do I always give so much and nobody gives anything back? All this emotional longing for what you're not getting back in the relationships, in the transactions. Why am I always the one giving? The constant moaning and complaining about why don't I ever get back? How I'm so loving. I'm always this, la, 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 la. It's that cycle because there's no devotion. You're not devoted to something higher. Again, the mother doesn't say that about the child. We don't say that about the dog. Why doesn't that dog love me as much as I love that? Oh, that cat is so mean. We never say it. The cat could take us or leave us, and we sit there and love it and marvel at its beauty and want to pet it. And even though it bites us, we're still, isn't that cute that it's biting me? Because we just love the animal and we don't want anything from it. Notice all those situations where you're longing and you're suffering emotionally. It's because you want something you're not getting, and it's about your ego. Sorry, it's that simple. Some things are simple. You're not the ego. So it's just keeping this fiction going. So it's a time to really have your meditations be deep and transformational and devotional. That's all devotion is. You don't need to have a guru like I have my guru, Amma, who I feel this devotion to. I felt devotion before I met Amma. It was different, and it was nowhere near as juicy and beautiful and alive with a living master and all like that. But I would sit down and I would have the devotion, and I would have the tears come just with the Shiva energy, with the teachings, with the connection to the soul and the heart. But it was very much internal, but it was having the living guru is much easier because we see it and we watch their actions are so beautiful and different than ours and elevating. So this is all also happening with this aspect of Jupiter onto the moon. You see Jupiter in Pisces, direct trinal aspect here, which is also bringing these powerful teachings into the heart, into your nature, into your life as the new moon is happening. Look at that. Sun, moon around 10, 11 degrees, Jupiter 14. Very exact aspect here. So again, on the 28th around this time, this is about 8 a.m. San Diego time, notice how devotional you can feel at that time. On the 27th, 28th, very powerful opportunity. Again, even just to do the things I'm saying here. You don't have to have a big guru or whatever, but what do you love? What are you thankful for? What are you devoted to? Hopefully something. Hopefully you're devoted to something. There's something bigger than you that you find that's absolutely beautiful, that is transcendent. If not, again, then your ego has locked everything down, because if your ego is so disconnected that you can't find that beauty and joy in something higher, even just astrology, or that you're grateful that you found these amazing teachings. I don't know what I would do if I hadn't found this stuff in this world we live in now. That includes my guru and everything else. So I'm so thankful that I have these teachings, whether I've ever met my guru or not. And so that devotion to the heart is really what's going. And this Jupiter in Pisces is very much about letting go now. The biggest thing we have to do is surrender and let go, because we carry so much around. It's the ego that's carrying everything around. You're carrying around so much baggage, so much experience and fear and ideas that you know more than you do, ideas that you're in control. No, I'll do this and I get this and I'm the one in control and I know what's really going on. And it's all really illusion. You have no control over anything that's really important. The sun could explode at any minute and kill us all. We have no idea. It would only happen once, and that would be the end of it. Oh, never saw that coming. We wouldn't even get to say that. It would just be done. Now, we don't think that's going to happen because we think we know why it's doing it, but we don't know. Anything could happen. You have no idea how. Nothing is in control. You're not in control of anything important, really. It doesn't mean you don't have control. You have control over very limited things that are really the most important in your life, which is the moment. But we're not in the moment. We're up in all this other stuff, trying to run our schemes and get things to work out. That's what we wind up doing. That's the stuff we really have no control over, because circumstances could change in a minute to change all of that. What we do really have control over is the moment, the breath, our awareness, all of that stuff. That's really, our consciousness is really the only thing that we're in control of, and how we're relating to it. But we're really never in that state. We're in another state. We're somewhere in our mind under all of these illusions that, oh, I'm really doing something important. This is my life, and this is really, and this is the most important thing. So all I'm saying is Jupiter in Pisces, more than anything, is about surrendering and letting go. Look, I'm doing this right now. I'm under the same illusions or whatever. It's not like you have to walk around 24/7, but it means when you sit down to meditate, or as a concept or whatever, have this concept in your mind. And then when you sit down to meditate, this is the thing to keep in mind, to just let it go for a while, even if for 10 minutes. Unburden yourself, surrender, relax, surrender. Again, people are like, well, how do I surrender? How do I let go? How? It's like, I give them the example. I say, here's how you do it. You see this? This is how you do it. You just drop it. Just drop it. Sit down and the mind is going, and just drop it. Just sink into the heart, into the fullness, into the silence. Let go. This is why I said earlier, bring that love and devotion that you have for your kids or God, or the gratitude for the teachings. Bring that attitude of gratitude and that devotion into it, and then just let go of everything else, because it's a burden anyway. It's a burden to hold all that up. So this next month, a great opportunity for all of this. Even this Mars Rahu in Aries is giving a lot of discipline, a lot of potential for discipline. If you're a disciplined person and a yogi, that's great potential right now. regardless of the intensity that we're seeing with Mars Rahu, it still brings a lot of potential for authentic spiritual teaching, especially as it relates to being disciplined and aligning with pure teachings and doing what you know is right, not just thinking about it. Again, Jupiter in Pisces, I already mentioned. Also, Saturn is aspecting wide a degree, but Saturn is in Capricorn. It's casting an aspect from that field of Capricorn to the field of Cancer. So again, Saturn is wanting to get to the truth. And when you sit in stillness and silence, Saturn is supporting that now. Venus is in Gemini, which is also bringing some pleasure and joy in, even with other people, but also even in pondering these things and finding the beauty in being open and whatnot. So anyway, as you see, I've put this link here. If you want to see how these things relate to you, again, this new moon in Cancer is based on these things I'm saying, but again, depending on your ascendant, if you're Capricorn, it's your 7th house where this is falling. If you're Sagittarius, it's your 8th house. These are very different experiences that each ascendant is going to have. And again, so I'm so glad to have the Astrology Training Lab back up again. Daily astrology is the best place to start with understanding yourself and astrology. With me and other talented teachers, daily forecasts, new and full moons forecast. Sebastian Oria doing the daily forecast. Look at how well this is organized and laid out for you. 50 cents to try it for 2 weeks. And Melissa Flores Davis with this great calendar and planner. And then I do the full and new moons, extensive videos where I talk about that for each sign. And then again, only 50 cents for 2-week trial. There's also, I didn't even talk about all the bonuses that you get. On that page, you can check that out. 3 powerful courses. So anyway, as I said before as well, please like and share this and subscribe to the channel as well. It definitely helps to keep things going. And 1 second here. Yeah. And so I also do really appreciate all of the great comments that people have been putting up. Really, now's the time to connect with the heart, to dissolve all of the the ego and its schemes and its ideas and its fears. There's so much fear. Relax and sink into the heart. Relax and sink into the heart. Now more than ever, we realize how we're not in control of so many things that seem to control us. Don't play into all of that fearfulness. Okay. That, the future is up for grabs, and certainly your present is in your control, and you can still always ride the beauty of that breath to that devotional space that never leaves. So anyway, with that, take care.